Beautiful day to you there on the first working day in the city. For those of you who are lucky enough to enjoy the holidays, welcome back to work. But for some of us, it's been work. My name is Lawrence Umotte. Welcome to Insight. Well, the days are counting. For some people, expectations are high. For other people, the polity is upbeat with an admixture of enthusiasm and positivity. For other groups of people, maybe frustrations and despondency. But in all of this, the time is ticking. Elections are over. A new government is in the offing. And in the midst of all this, what is the challenge for our dear country, Nigeria, post 2023 election? That's what we are going to look at. Nigeria in focus. What is it that this country needs looking ahead? And my guest is a friend of the house, Amadine Uyi, who is a bureau chief, News Central. He's also the head of Northern Operation of News Central. Amadine, thanks for joining us on Insight.
Thank you once again, Lawrence.
I know the first working day of the week, it's always very busy for journalists, so we are not taking this for granted. Thank you for sparing time to be with us on Insight.
Thank you.
Yes, so you can join our live stream on YouTube. Type in Citizen FM 93.7 and you'll be part of the show. Our social media platforms are still available for you to interact with us. Citizen FM Abuja, that's for Facebook, at Citizen FM Abuja. On Instagram, at Citizen FM 937. And also Twitter, at Citizen FM 937. And you know that by 10:30 we will open the phone lines for you to get in touch with us. And when the time comes, we will announce the numbers. Just like I said earlier, Nigeria post 2023 election. What are the challenges? Amadine, straight up, let's start. A proper way to start this is to look at the return of the president-elect yesterday after taking some rest, according to his media handlers, after taking a rest after the election. The return of the president-elect, Senator Bola Tinubu, and expectedly it has generated a lot of interest among Nigerians.
Very true. He came back into the country yesterday. Reports say he came in from France, and he came via the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport. He did not speak to the media or the mammoth crowds that went to await his arrival, but he was able to hail them, greet them, and shortly after, his media handlers released a statement for him saying he's ready for the task ahead. The big question is, that tax, does his team really fully comprehend the task that is on ground? Because like I said earlier on, Nigeria is a country, is like a very beautiful woman with plenty of problems. Some people say, who wants to marry such a woman? By the time you marry her, you remember that she's owing school fees, she's owing house rent.
Amadine, why not that Nigeria is like a handsome man with full of problems?
No, because when you marry a woman as a responsible man, it is expected that you embrace all her problems. If she's owing school fees, as the husband who is the breadwinner, you have to pay it. If she's owing your neighbor, you have to pay the money, because you will not be there while they come and disgrace your wife. That is why we use that analogy. It is not a woman that takes care of a man. It is expected that whatever contributions a woman does in a marriage, it should be of our own will, and not because it is expected that she's meant to, in this part of our world, in this climb, it is the man that takes responsibility.
The man that is expected.
Yes, that is expected to take responsibility. In fact, when people hear that your wife is feeding you, or your wife is the one paying the children's school fees and house rent, other men will look at you like an irresponsible person. That is why the challenge of joblessness weighs more on the man than on the woman. Not because we are trying to stereotype gender or whatever. We have a culture, and our culture has expectations, and based on our cultural expectations, the man is meant to be the provider of the household. So the same way, when you try to draw the analogy with Nigeria, it is the president that leads the charge to solve Nigeria's problem. The president does not seek my opinion or your opinion when he wants to appoint ministers. He does not seek my opinion or your opinion when he wants to appoint the service chiefs. So that is why when there's a problem with insecurity, beyond even blaming the service chiefs, it is the president that is first blamed. He cannot give excuse and say, I appointed somebody now, they didn't perform. No, you did not seek the permission of Nigerians. If Nigerians voted you in to solve the problem of insecurity, to solve the problem of economy, to solve the problem of education, to solve the problem of health.
Well, Amadine, we can also say alternatively that Nigerians gave him the permission the moment they voted for him. So they gave him the permission to go ahead and pick your teams.
Yes, so that is why the buck always stops at his table. Now, relating that to our discussion, May 29th, we are going to have another president in the saddle. We are going to have a new commander-in-chief. Already an election has been conducted. INEC has declared a president-elect. By May 29th, he will cease to be a president-elect but become the president of Nigeria. What are those challenges? Let's start. Nigeria, people say that Nigeria's problem is a revenue problem. Does the new government have the capacity to solve that problem? How many million do we have captured in our tax net? Some claim that we have an 80 trillion naira economy, yet our budgets are not more than 11, 10, 12 trillion. In fact, it was after the advent of President Muhammadu Buhari that the budget moved from 4.5 trillion or 5 trillion to 9, 10, 11 trillion. So the new president, the new administration will have to go out of their way to see that a lot of Nigerians are captured in the tax net. And when I mean a lot, we have more people working in the informal sector. When I mean informal sector, I mean taxi drivers, boat drivers, farmers, the people that hawk on the road. These people don't pay tax. That is why estimates say that our revenue generation ratio is about 6% to our GDP, which is one of the lowest in the world. This has to change if we are really talking about development, if we are really serious about development and about taking Nigeria to the next level. But we have a president-elect who has proven that he can, from his last stint as Lagos governor. Data available tells us that in 1999, when he took over as Lagos governor, Lagos was generating approximately 600 million naira in revenue. By 2006, a year before he left the saddle, Lagos was generating almost 5 billion monthly. By the last year, while he was before he left, Lagos had upped their revenue to about 7.05 or so billion monthly. As of today, through accelerated efforts and other continuity, with the way Lagos is run, and placing your searchlight on citizens. Lagos generates over 22 billion monthly. So some are saying that if the template worked in Lagos, it can work on the national level. But there's a caveat to it. Some states have tried to replicate Lagos model, and it has not worked. There are several states who have taken the same consultants and say, this you have done in Lagos, come and replicate it.
Okay, Ahmadine. I want us to move quickly because we have a lot to talk about, and we are actually looking at the challenge of Nigeria and not necessarily the challenge of the next president. Although they are intertwined, there is hardly how we are going to discuss one and not bring in the other. But let's move on to the issue of security for the nation. Over the years, it's been a battle. In fact, the last 8 years for the outgoing government has been largely dominated by the issue of insecurity, which was also a carryover of the Jonathan's administration. So we can safely say that from 2010, 2011 till date, the issue of insecurity has dominated the national space.
Yes, that is also another challenge that the country has. I talked about the beautiful woman that has different problems. That is just one. Now, let me go back to prior 2014, or let me go back to 2014. Early 2014, I think, was it February, where Boko Haram attacked Buniyadi. It was Buniyadi, where they slaughtered those little boys. Buniyadi occurred before the Chibok issue.
Yes, which was April.
Yes, the Chibok happened April 15th 14th or 15th. Buniyadi happened February. In fact, before Buniyadi, January it has started, because reports had already started coming in that communities were being attacked and razed down, people killed. But Buniyadi was the first educational institution that they went. But this time, they did not kidnap them. They slaughtered them. Those were little, a lot of them 15, 12-year-old, and they killed them. From there, when they now got to Chibok, and they now felt that, why instead of killing these are girls, we don't need to kill them, they carry them away. So you see, that problem has started it started earlier than then, but it was then that it began to really manifest, give that national headline. Before, it was contained in the northeast, because we know that there were times Boko Haram had attacked the Mopo barracks in Maiduguri, where they killed the wives and families of those 7 police officers. That happened before 2014, but at those times it did not have a national headline, because somehow, some way they were able to suppress the information. I don't know how, but I know that that information did not. But now, 2014, when this started happening, we saw that was just before the elections. It got so bad that it was said that Boko Haram had taken a space as large as Belgium from Nigeria's northeast. They had raised their flags, forcing communities to pay taxes. You had to settle before you can go to farm. You had to settle before you could go and fish. All these were happening. But 2015, prior to the election, remember that the election was postponed. But not just postponed. The federal government, the government under Goodluck Jonathan, went on a massive onslaught against the terrorists. They took over swaths of territory back, took over Goza, took over several other places. And then after that, the Buhari administration came in. Now, the Buhari administration, to be very fair, they continued where the Jonathan administration left off. They did not start that onslaught, because I covered security. Remember, I covered security. I spent most of the chunk of my time as a journalist in the northeast, from Yola to Mubi to Madagali. I was roving all those areas, getting information on what the terrorists were doing.
With me beyond your neck.
Yes, what is happening, and speaking to a lot of people who were leaving that area to safer grounds. But when Buhari administration came in, there was a rejigging of the leadership of the military, which continued where the Jonathan administration left off. And what happened? To be very fair, a lot has been achieved in these last 8 years. But for us who are also journalists and who are also placing a tab on events, the insecurity situation presented itself like a virus. You know how a virus is. When you start giving it one drug and it sees that that drug is weakening it, it metamorphoses to try to survive. So that was exactly what happened. Because of the firepower of our security agencies, not just the military, the police, the DSS and others, a lot of those terrorists now began to relocate from the northeast, which was the epicenter, and they began to relocate to the northwest, the north central, and the rest. Now, what now happened was, because a lot of them had relocated, these are criminals. They only know criminality. And so what they did was that they saw ungoverned spaces. There were so many forests there that there was no visible presence of security or government. So what they did was that they went there to set up camps, and now changed from the direct attack on government facilities and innocent communities. They now metamorphosed into large scale kidnapping
and banditry.
So that had been going on for how many years? While government was still making that mistake of focusing on just the terrorists in the northeast. They were building camps, certain areas in the northwest, and they started kidnapping. In fact, the kidnapping, from our intelligence information, they started from small farmers. They will kidnap you pay 100,000, kidnap you pay 50,000. It was that bad. It was that bad. It was when the kidnapping started going out of hand, the bolder they were becoming. As they kidnapped, they would buy weapons. When it got so bad, they now started demanding for monies that was very impossible. 100 million, 200 million, 500 million. See, Nigerians in the north central, and the northwest suffered tremendously from these relocated terrorists who had now changed their toga, and we now began to refer to them as bandits. A lot of them were offshoots of the insecurity in the northeast. Let me just say this right. So the president that has to come now, but let me be very clear, because for the sake of our listeners, there was also, in other regions, the southeast, the southwest, and there were kidnappings and other forms of security. It's not like security was entrenched only in the north. So the next administration that will have to come in now has a problem to solve.
A huge one.
Yeah, a very huge one. How can he make kidnapping, because it's now some say it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. How can it be solved? It's a problem that has to be solved.
Okay, Amadine, we have about maybe 35 days or thereabout, a little over a month before the swearing in, and I guess that's when the president-elect is going to mute his team, consider people who would run the administration with him and everything. And Amadine, you've covered politics over the years. You know how this happens. The power play that is going on now in the president-elect's camp. People will need to be repaid for favor during election. People will need to be compensated, and the president also will need to get a crack team. As he said, he's going to hit the ground running and everything, and this has to happen in a month's time. Are you very optimistic that this will happen?
Look, this is beyond being optimistic. He has no choice, because the current administration, whether we like it or not, many Nigerians are unanimous in agreeing that the 6 months it took for the current president to set up his team affected the country
in his first term.
Yes, in his first term. affected the country, took us backward by a long stretch. So the new administration will have to learn from that past mistakes. Some members of his camp who we have spoken to on a more personal basis